as I've said many times, Friday morning is probably the best part of my week. I really enjoy when we all have a little coffee clutch like that. But the main event today, Bryan Barrera, you've got a thing or two to say. He's one of our newest group members. You and I met in 2016,
16?
I think.
Yeah.
And do you still live in the Southern California area? Are you in Arizona? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Riverside, California. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you came with a buddy that day with Trademark Plastics. Do you remember who you might have brought with you? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a buddy of mine named Phil Estrada. He was the guy I went with.
What is he doing these days?
I don't know. I don't know. He left the company about 4 or 5 years ago. That's about 4 years ago, shortly after the event. So I haven't really kept in touch with him.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
For a bit of context, tell us about your background. So when I first met you, you were doing, I think it was sales for them, right?
Yeah. So I was
Plastics. What was that about?
Yeah, so I was in sales I was VP of sales for a few years over at Trademark, and then the business wasn't doing that well. We did an expansion project that didn't work out so well. Our manufacturing wasn't really catching up with our sales. We bit off a little bit more than we could chew. And at that time, I had the energy to, try a new endeavor, and I got into operations. I told the owners, I was like, give me a shot. I think I can help out. I think I could get us out of this hole. And I did. With an awesome team that we had, we got out of the hole. We worked together extremely well. We revamped our quality management system. We visited our customers and got some crucial feedback from them. And we just started working with them. And our strategy was to become an extension of our clients, right? And I'm talking about the BDs, the Medtronics, all those supply chains that are very, very detail oriented. And we kind of piggybacked off our customers, and we ended up getting out of the hole. And I ended up becoming chief operations officer. I actually went to Pepperdine Grazie Dio Business School. That was like my reward for getting us out of the hole. And I had no collegiate experience before that. I had to go through a special program at Pepperdine. I interviewed with like 5 professors who kept asking me, man, you're going to be dealing with some highly educated people. How are you going to keep up with them if you have no collegiate experience? And I just flat out told them, I said, you're not going to work anybody that works harder than me. You're not. It's just not going to happen. And I will read the recommended books, not only the books that I have to read, but the recommended as well, so I can get to know every last bit of detail in regards to what we're learning. And I passed. And then after I passed, the cohort asked me to join them over at Chicago Business School. The Chicago School of Professional Psychology. So right now I'm in my 3rd year of my PhD for that.
Wow.
So I went.
Do I understand you that when you were at Trademark, you had only a high school education?
That's it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I got into education, and the cool thing was, Joe, is that I started to really put all the concepts and models that I was learning in place while I was at work. And I know a lot of the professors like, don't go crazy, don't go back to work and start implementing all this crazy stuff before you understand it. But like I said, I was reading the recommended books, and I really understood a lot of the concepts and models, from the ground up. And I started implementing that stuff, and I started helping out friends as well, colleagues, and it just kind of took off from there. So now, after I left Trademark about 6 weeks ago, a bunch of friends called me, a bunch of colleagues saying, hey, you know what? I know you're probably getting offers left and right, but I want you to come help me out. And I got a few offers, not gonna lie, I got a few really good ones, but I just kept getting feedback from colleagues, and they just kept saying, why don't you come help me? Why don't you come help me? So right now I have 2 clients, probably 2 or 3 more down the pipeline that I'm consulting with. I never thought I'd be a consultant, but that's the path I took. And my wife really pushed me too. She said, you know what, this is what you were born to do. And I was such I hate this term, but it's true. I was a high-powered executive for like 5-6 years of working 14-hour days and visiting clients across the world. And I got kind of tired. And now that it's so awesome you were pointing out the babies of these awesome people, because I have 2 babies at home too, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I'm able to see them more now. I'm able to really do what I love to do, Joe. So it's been a real blessing since I left Trademark.
I know the hearts of the people on this call, and I can say on their behalf, a hearty MDG premium welcome, Bryan.
Thank you.
I don't know I can't think of another medical device executive that I know that was in the field with a high school education. I know there's a really interesting story there about why that choice and what was going on in your life. It's probably more than you choose to cover in this call, but good on you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, just to be clear for everybody, I'm by no means a medical device expert. We did medical components where I was at. I've learned about startups and through my PhD and my MBA, but it's more on the medical component side and the quality side of where of where my expertise is pretty much.
Okay. Now you mentioned you already have two clients. You don't have to divulge, of course, who they are, but what kind of consulting are you doing for them?
Yeah, one is it's become a really cool relationship. I started to he reached out to me right away off LinkedIn, said, "Hey man, I heard you left Trademark. What's going on?" I said, "Yeah, I'm no longer there. You know, we mutually parted ways. We were going in two different directions, and we just decided to keep our friendship. So we decided to part ways. And well, dude, I need you over here. You know, I need you over here. I need to talk to you." And one thing led to another, and it's been really good because it's I say older gentleman, but I'm 36 years old, and I say older gentleman, but he's in his late 40s. So it's to me, he's an older gentleman. And he pretty much kind of is mentoring me right now. And at the same time, I'm giving him consultation advice on he likes to call it his blind spots. So that's literally what it's been. And then, you know, there's also a software company that I'm dealing with that it's super confidential, so I can't say too much of it, but I'm consulting for them too. And it's more on the sales and marketing side and developing that aspect for them.
Good on you. Okay, what will you be teaching us today?
Well, so I also went through a program, and I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It's the MIT X Pro Drug Delivery and Medical Device Program, a development program. And through this program, and this was after my MBA, but I learned a lot about startups in my MBA. You know, I did so many deep dives on the Apples and, you know, just companies like that, and really understanding the 0 to 1 concept and understanding just, you know, their business model and how they were broke and they just made it one day, right? So I kind of expanded on that into the MIT X Pro program, just to understand medical device manufacturing, development. And what really got me, and it's kind of led me to my passion now, which is the field I'm in. It's working with startups. I'm a part of the World Cup of Startups. I just went to an event there at Pepperdine University that hosted the World Cup of Startups. Also the Riverside community, the Los Angeles community, when it comes to startups. And what I'm noticing is that it's very, very true what I learned in this MIT X Pro class of sometimes these startups really need help and they don't know how to ask, or they don't want to ask for help. And I actually did some homework last night on this, and there's a research thing that I found with CB Insights, the top reasons why startups fail. And there was 12 reasons why. And the one that really got me was 5% of startups fail because of burned out, lack of passion. And what they meant, I read the detail on it. The lack of passion meant like they lose the passion over time, right? But they keep going. So yeah, the burned out phase. And what I interpreted the burned out phase was, you know, sometimes when these startup founders are very creative, very innovative, what they do is they decide at times not to share their IP. They don't want to ask for help sometimes. And I have dealt with a couple companies like this. You know, they don't want to hire a CFO. They don't want to hire another engineer because of their IP, because of their patents. And they, you know, they're very, very paranoid, some of them, which I totally understand. But what ends up happening sometimes is because they're not partnering with others, they now have to wear many hats for the organization. They now have to do their sales and marketing. If they have to fund, if they have to, you know, get another round of funding, they have to do the presentation deck, etc. And they're not being able to do what makes them what they're the best at, which is medical device development or the creation, expanding their creation, right? And that's just what really got me and really intrigued me was the fact that burnout is serious, and it's 5% of the reason why startups fail. So that was the first topic I wanted to discuss.
Okay, and I don't expect that you do, but just I'll ask: do you have any slides today? You certainly don't need them.
No, I don't have slides.
Okay, good. I'm just looking.
Yeah.
All right, next.
I think there's also a great comment to that. A lot of them don't know what to ask. So if I find somebody that I trust, I say, what would you do if you were me? And I think that has helped me so much, because a lot of people don't want to sound like a know-it-all, and they don't know what you know. And so I think that's a really good question for startup founders is, what would you do if you were me? And who would you talk to? And what company would you use?
That's great. Yeah, I totally agree. It's like I said, I think for most people that really understand business and really want to be successful, I think that's a very great approach. Like I said, a couple of the companies that I've dealt with, they just don't want anybody else involved. And I've noticed that after 4 or 5 years, they do end up burning out, and they burn out because, you know, they don't know the question to ask, like you said, and they just don't ask for help. So that's a big pitfall when it comes to this. Does anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, I think it also speaks, though, as far as just, looking for help, it also speaks to the importance of who you even entertain to bring in as an investor. Because I think people are very quick to take any money at early stages. But particularly in this space, in regulated spaces, it's not necessarily helpful to have people in that don't understand what it takes. They can't really bring you the advice, they can't bring the contacts, and actually they wind up putting pressure on you for things that isn't necessarily realistic given the regulatory constraints and the pathway that's needed to get to market.
Good point. Anybody else have any other comments?
Yeah, what else was on your list?
Oh yeah, going back to this topic as well. I mean, so a couple of the companies that I worked with, especially one was, we were in a situation where it was time to start validating the product, and doing the DFM, and then jumping into IQ, PQ for the medical device. And what I found out was their sales guy now became their quality expert, who was also doing their investment decks, their investment pitches. So, and this person, once I started talking to this person, it got to the point where, I mean, tears were almost shed, because they were like, man, these guys don't want to hire anybody. So I'm kind of wearing all these hats now. I literally started as a salesperson, and then I knew a little bit about quality. So then I was asked to be in quality. I was given more shares of the company. And then after that, our other sales guy left. So then I had to do investment decks. And once I did investment decks, I'm now not doing quality at all. And then once we jump into DFM, people look at me like, well, where are we at quality wise? Where are we at with the validation? Or where are we at with our 510K process, right? And I'm telling you, I saw a lot of that stuff. Does anybody have a similar experience to that?
Well, I'm curious about Michelle having slapped her forehead.
I think it's the classic, you kind of know just enough to be dangerous. And I have not met a startup that truly understood the scope of their quality system needed to be, or the implications of their regulatory strategy, because they think it's easier than the other things they're doing. And they also think that, hey, the regulations, they're written in English. I can read English, so I can understand the regulations myself. And it's a whole different language. It's a whole different dialect.
That's a great point. At my last job, I remember we used to have our ISO 13485, ISO 9001 audits, and it got to the point where we just kept copying and pasting every time we had 9 non-conformances, or 3 minors, 3 majors, whatever, right? And over time, what ended up happening was we just got fed up. Myself and the quality manager, we just got fed up, and we said, hey, you know what? We're just going to do everything from scratch. And this was around when the new standard came out in 2018, I believe. So we redid the whole standard, and it's so true what you're saying. It seems like it's easy. It sounds like it's easy. It sounds like something you could just put aside. But when you really dive into it, it's really updating all your policies and procedures inside your organization. And at the end of the day, even though you're putting the hard work forward, at the very end, what's really happening is you're making everything that much easier. The hard work is done, and now you just follow the processes right after. So that's a very good point you brought up. Thank you.
It's also really hard to find people that are detail oriented. So in startups, it's very hard. There's a lot of people that are excited about the momentum and excited about what you're doing, but the people that get you there, the people that are focused enough on quality to do other focused work, those people are few and far between, and they're so valuable to startups. So they do get spread thin because they're so good at what they do, and startups can't technically afford a bunch of those, and they're just so hard to find as well.
Well, and they under budget for the stuff that they don't know about as well. Like, I have people that don't call me often enough, or don't call me when they should, because they think it's expensive. But what's really expensive is them calling me too late, and then we have to reverse engineer everything. It's particularly bad in the software world, where somebody calls me, they think they have a product, but they have not one piece of documentation about how they develop that software. And they're like, we need you to write a 510K. And I'm like, from what?
From someone who's been on the marketing side, it's like going to your regulatory, it's like going to the doctor. Like, you have to do it. And if you don't, you'll die, but you just, avoid it. It's like, it's that kind of relationship. But you
Hopefully it's not like going to the proctologist.
So your exams hurt, Michelle.
Yeah.
Really, Michelle? That's where you're going to go with this call?
He went there.
But in defense of the startup, the entrepreneurs, there is, Joe, your book of, you want to create a product or now whatever is really past due, because, there's so much to put together to get a company off the ground, right? And which fire do you put out first, given the resources? I don't know a startup that has unlimited cash, and, it's 1 yard football. And I think the guidance can be, okay, put this fire out first, and the next one, and the next one, call Michelle first, and and then maybe for marketing, because people get an idea, and like me, they go to market straight away, and they're like, nothing's in place.
yeah.
But it's the art of creating something from nothing, right? So Joe, it's all your fault. You haven't got the book out.
No, we really need to, maybe after London, we can focus on that. Bryan, given your vast background and what you're studying now, and what you're doing, and where you're taking your career, I want to make sure that folks on the call know when or for what topics they might tap you, because you've done sales now. You can't be everything to everyone. So who specifically, if you've given it so much thought in 6 weeks, who specifically is the character of the kinds of persons that really should talk to you? Oh, you really should talk to Bryan because you're working on this and that's his thing. How would we direct people to you?
Yeah, I guess thank you for that question, Joe. That's a great question. I guess I'm geared more towards executive leadership and helping executives out. And that's in regard to a startup company or an established company. I've done a lot of market research on this, and I think my wheelhouse is more from the consultation on $5 million in revenue companies to about 50 million. Anything above that, I think it's a little too much for me, but just for me, it's that realm of executive leadership from that range. Because what I do is, and this is what I love doing, right? So it's not really a job, but what I do is I kind of analyze exactly what you're doing at the moment, both from a employee perspective and a visionary perspective. So if the executive has a vision, if they know where they want to go, and they don't have the right employees that are going to ride by their side, there's no point in you moving forward. It's, if your vision is not matching the capabilities of your employees, then how are your customers going to see that, right? So it's kind of a two-way street where I analyze internally and then I analyze externally. So if what you're doing internally matches the market that you're in, that's exactly what my sweet spot is. So if you have engineers that are not into new technologies, they're not innovative at all, which is why the company's name is LC Innovation. And I don't mean innovation as something that's brand new or some shiny new object. That's not the point. What I mean by innovation is something new, something different, right? I'm doing things more efficiently. So if they have a bunch of engineers that don't want to be in technology, don't care about technological advancements, but yet you're promoting yourself to your clients as technologically advanced, what are your clients going to see? If they're dealing with your chief operating officer, if they're dealing with your engineers and they're not getting what they want, that means that you're not in the right market or you don't have the right team. And that's kind of what we do. And I use a lot of models. One cool model that I have is Organizational Culture Assessment Instrument, the OCAI. And that one just really, it's like a radar chart that really understands, based on 4 pillars. It's market, clan, adhocracy, and hierarchy. Sorry. So those 4 pillars are the success to a company, right? And you're either invested in one or the other, or what happens is a couple of your employees or a few of your key employees are really market-based, meaning they're very competitive. They're all about costing structures, pricing structures. But the owner of the company or the inventor of company or the CEO actually wants to be more innovative or entrepreneurial. So if your team is more on the market side, right? If they're more in marketing, pricing, stuff like that, and you're more focused on the innovative side, entrepreneurial side, then we build the structure of where you're going to take your company moving forward. It might be getting rid of those employees, or it might be just talking to those employees and having some type of 360-degree feedback before you can really understand what their mind frame is and how we can move forward. You know what? I know we were doing this before, but this is what we're going to do moving forward, and this is the market that we're going to go after. So that's kind of my sweet spot. I know that was a long-winded answer. Sorry, Joe.
You need to apologize to me. I'm trying to envision the person who, Sue, yours is a young company, Anna, yours, but you don't have employees yet. So how many employees do you have?
3, including myself.
Okay.
I'm not getting paid.
You're not getting paid? You will be.
I will be. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, I know you're not worried about it. So are some of the things that,
FDA pre-sub went really well.
I'm sorry?
We had an FDA pre-sub last week in Durham, North Carolina, and it went really well.
Oh, great. Congratulations. I'm wondering if at your young stage as a company, and if I'm not mistaken, this is your first company, yes? Are some of the things that Brian's saying resonating with you?
Oh, absolutely. Great inspiration. And he's right about having the right team. I feel like I have a really good team and a lot of people that believe in me and believe in the product, and that will help us become successful.
Well,
That's awesome.
I'm wondering, I'm thinking as Brian's unappointed marketing vice president, you would be kind of the right profile for someone who might consider hiring him. But I'm wondering also, like, I'm thinking if I had 3 employees and I were at your stage, I would think, do I really need Bryan yet? Or how much does Bryan cost and what am I actually going to get out of it? And I don't know how to tease that out for what your value proposition is, Bryan. And perhaps someone else on the call can. Because I forgive me, back at my business school, we took the management course and everyone thought that was the gut course. Now, of course, had I actually done well in it and could actually do any of that, I might be employable. But management is a very kind of teaching leadership and the like. I wonder who's self-aware enough and has the budget and says, yeah, I really need reinforcements here, and how that works. So anyone on the call have a
I have a lot
management consultant come in to help with leadership and how he might position himself?
Yeah, could I jump in?
Please. Yeah, you'd be great to hear from.
So I've been doing this for 20 years, and personal coaching. I've invented a philosophy to life, and I teach meditation and spiritual healing. Literally did that, and then brought it into the business world. And I launched my consulting career teaching meditation in Unity churches. I was doing a tour across the U.S. And what I found was, entrepreneurs don't have liquid cash lying around or pennies. Money for personal development is the last priority on their budget, because like Sue's, right? She's rocking it out and still not paid herself. So I found it very, very, very difficult to develop a sustainable business doing executive coaching to entrepreneurs, and my marketplace is virtually identical market size. I come a little slower down to the startups, smaller to the startups as well. But what I did find a lot of success, and I'm still doing it, is linking the work I do, which is, in my case, sales and revenue development, but I link it to a business budget, if you would. So I get paid from the business revenues, if you would, and for a very well recognized business task, which is revenue generation. So now my offer is a chief revenue officer as a service. If you go to pauldesouza.com/services, that page. But I start with personal growth, business growth, and exit strategy planning, right? And I get paid from very structured business budgets, and I start with what does the business need, and oh, by the way, if it needs personal growth at the CEO level, executive level, employee level, because all business is personal, the business is only as good as the headspace and the heart space of the employees. But I link my efforts to business strategy and business budgets.
I want to tell you, Paul, I totally agree with what you're saying, because if you're not, I meditate every day. I've been doing it for years, and I spend the time for personal growth for myself, because it can be, overwhelmingly and very stressful, and shingles and all of that. So to keep myself grounded, I need that personal growth. And if it comes out of my own expense account, it doesn't come out of the CarTech account. But I think it's so important to have your head on straight. And to do that, you need to, feel positive about yourself. I can't hire a sales and marketing team yet. I know that, and I know that is somewhere in the next 12 months, I'll need to call Bryan up and say, hey, can you help me? But that's not on my, time, on my budget right now.
Yeah, but Sue, to your point, right? So thank you for that feedback. It's true. I mean, it's taking care of our personal selves is vital and critical. Yet, but to your point, because you're a prospect, as your revenues grow, and it's a rhetorical question, right? The money that you spend, we will first spend it on business growth, right? Or a business requirement, and then a personal requirement, because that's just the integrity of getting the business off the ground. You've got to have that kind of focus. And that's my only, the awareness I came to, which is, oh my gosh, everybody needs me, but let me first address the business requirements first, because that's where the budget's at. And oh, by the way, I'll take care of the people, right? Because if they're not delivering, and also it aligns very well with the integrity of, when we serve a company, when we start a company, or as I've been turning businesses around since I started this in 2003. I say the entity of that business is a personality in itself. So the spirit of the company that I'm working with, they come first. That entity comes first, and that's integrity we've got to show. So, if the CEO or the leadership's got resources, they got to put them there first, and just more aligned. Everybody's in line with the success of the company. We take care of the strategy as well as the people and the personalities and things like that. It just flows better, as opposed to separating and saying, I would work just with the individuals and then come back to the company and say, work with the company and then take care of the individuals.
Yeah, Paul, I couldn't agree with you more. I 100% agree with you. That's so important. And that's one of the things that I teach pretty much. It's a balanced scorecard. It's having the 4 foundations, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is because I know you can't make every single concept bring it to life, but if you do have a vision, it should be documented. Somebody mentioned earlier about documentation. A lot of these things should be documented, right? So if you follow the balanced scorecard, at the bottom, at the foundation, right, the learning and growth perspective, you have human capital, organizational capital, information capital. And if you pick one of those that your company is best at, you could jump into the next stage, which is your internal processes, right? So if you choose one of those stages, in my perspective, I have a lot of experience with the human capital aspect. You train your employees, you get your employees up to speed where they need to be. You find the hungry employees that really want to make a difference. And if you invest in those people, there's a reciprocal relationship that happens. Okay, I invested in you. Now you're going to invest in the organization, right? And it jumps into the next step. The next step after that is the processes. All of a sudden, you revamp your quality management system. All of a sudden, your FDA, you have an FDA expert, or you have people that know about FDA and they're cognizant of FDA, right? And then after that, if your internal processes are running extremely well, it then jumps into the next tier, which is your clients. Your clients are happy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So Bryan, just to frame it, because all of us here sort of are on your team, with our listening out to see how we can help you grow your practice, right? Are you presenting yourself, or should we think of you as a strategist and in a sense qualify and say, hey, do you have the budget are you looking for a strategist? Is that the corporate budget you're coming out of? Which corporate budget are you getting paid from? Like me, I get paid from sales and marketing budgets, as an example. And I do personal training. We were at Joe's 10X event. We designed a retreat on my healing ranch called Breathe for heart-centered executives to come and develop themselves and work on themselves and their businesses. But I get paid from sales and marketing budgets. Which budgets do you get paid from?
Probably sales and marketing as well. Yeah, because I don't think that and everything that I do, it all goes back to the customer. Is your customer getting the value? Is your customer getting the value from what you're presenting, from what you're doing in your organization?
Just feedback. That connection was not clear for me until everything you talked about sounded more like a strategist and, a visionary, basically. And a lot of companies, the mature, bigger companies, banks, people, whether they have, corporate strategy departments, you sound like a strategist. But if it's sales and marketing, that'll be a very different set. And just my opinion, different set of, because a sales and marketing consultant would not have the invitation to sit at the HR strategy table, right?
Well, but if we're talking about startups, sometimes they don't have. They do have. Sometimes it's very vague where they just figure it out where it's coming from a lot of times too. So I can see where Bryan. And first of all, am I the only one that thinks Bryan and Paul could be brothers?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I think you mean I think you mean father and son, Alyssa.
Oh.
No, we're gonna keep it at brothers, Joe.
Since Bryan,
we go too far,
already insulted a good chunk of us by calling anybody in their 40s the old guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Thank you.
I said to me.
Hey, Mike-
No offense, guys. Sorry.
You guys know I have 10X in 3 weeks in London. The one in California is going to be April 11, 12, and 13. And Paul, I'm wondering how the group would feel if you were to lead some kind of meditative morning, if that would be interesting for people.
We'd
Would
love
they
do
want to?
that, especially on the 13th, because that's my birthday.
Fair enough. That'd be a great, I'm ready to go. I got this ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing is, I'm going to call out two of my guests on the participant list who've yet to accept my invitation to come on screen. If Jody and Andy are willing, I believe that they are a suitable audience and participant for what you're talking about today, Bryan. So, gentlemen, if you're willing, I'll ask you again, and if you can come on, that'd be great. Bryan, please continue.
Well,
I did have a
in the
question for Bryan.
meantime, I wanted
was
to
that?
just point out, Bryan, you said your target size customer was between 5 million and 10 to 15 million. Is that right?
Mhm. Yes.
I would venture to say that's not exactly a startup.
Yes.
So, yeah, so I think that there's some terminology around what your ideal customer is and what they need, especially in light of what we were just talking about, like with you sound like a this or you sound like a that. Well, a $5 to $10 million company needs something very different, and they can pay their bills than a startup.
Yeah.
And a true startup, pre-commercialization.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Thanks for bringing that up. I need to do some clarifications. I was here. I wasn't prepared to talk about my company to this detail, so I wasn't prepared for that. I was prepared to talk about
Give and take
startup
thing.
leadership.
This isn't just listen.
Yeah,
This is
exactly. Yeah,
we help one another here.
exactly. I appreciate that, Joe. So yeah, just to clear a couple of things up. My passion is working with startup companies, and that's why I brought this up. I am dealing with more advanced companies in regards to sales revenue. That's what pays the bills. But my passion is to help startups. I mean, I've worked, like I said, I'm part of the Riverside community. They invited me there. I made some connections from Pepperdine's top 30 startups, top 30 most fundable startups. Sorry. So I've built this network, and that's really what I like working with. You can ask some of my colleagues. We'll have conversations where we talk for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and I just help them out with strategy. That's my passion. That's what I do. Business wise, yeah, it's geared a lot more towards the 5 to 50 million, because that's the range that I'm at. But that's it. So to clarify, and also Paul, you bring up,
Bryan, sorry to jump in, Bryan. You gotta level set that everybody's gonna laugh at this. Working with startups is a disease. All right, it's like you got to. It's an addiction, but you got to treat it like tithing. 10%.
I think it's like a mental health problem.
It's a mental health problem. So.
I totally agree. A sane person wouldn't do it.
A sane person wouldn't do it. So let's stop calling a spade a spade. And my recommendation, I'm guaranteed, Mady's going to back me up on this, and everybody else is like 10%. It's like tithing, like you give to the church. That's all. And if you don't, like if my wife hears me on a mentoring call with the Founder Institute, I got to answer and I got to justify it on how it's only 10% of the effort I'm taking, because there's zero ROI. Forget about startups.
Before we continue, Anna, does your daughter have anything to contribute? Maybe just say hi or.
Can you say hi?
Hi.
Good morning, Nana. Performance anxiety and
Good
bedhead.
morning.
Okay.
Andy, we won't talk with you just as gently as her daughter, but would you introduce yourself and why I might have said, oh, you need to come on camera?
Sure, Joe, and yeah, sorry for having you you had to call me out, but yeah, I'm Andy Opes. I'm with a small company called Fistula Solution. We have a line of devices for fistula and ostomy care, and we're working on an NIH grant to develop a whole new line of products. So we're pretty small and looking to grow. So thanks for having me.
Of course, and before that's your full-time work now, I assume. You've built
That's
up.
correct. Yep.
You built up some personal wealth where you can afford to be a founder for a while. What did you do before this?
Oh, I was an engineer for Anderson Windows in Minnesota, making windows for people's houses.
We're in Minnesota. Mike, where are you?
I'm in Scandia. It's north of the cities.
Yeah. Andy, I have a lot of your products in my home.
I was going to say, do you still have any connections? Because my house is all Anderson and they're shit. Like every single window is leaking or the trim is moved and we can't get Anderson to respond.
Let's not go into home improvement, guys. There's.
I just want a name of like a CEO I can call. That's all.
Well, the CEO's name is Jay Lund. But I haven't been there for a while, so I think that I don't think I have any leverage down there anymore.
Okay, I'm gonna LinkedIn him.
I do have a question for Bryan, because I've thought about bringing this to the table. And so I went to WashU recently. I graduated and I went specifically because I knew I was going to start a company and I wanted to take off blinders. And one thing that WashU taught me through case studies, particularly and working with the team, is how perception is reality, and how to take blinders off from each other and build teams that are effective. Do you ever utilize case studies when you work with, because I think they're so valuable?
Yeah, listen, I do it all the time, actually. I do it quite a bit, and I do it based off it's actually the innovation that I'm talking about. Is that a lot of these companies, they just redid something, right? It wasn't creating something new from scratch. It was just reinventing the wheel, kind of, or just making some adapting a little bit, or doing a quick pivot in which it just took. I mean, DoorDash was around before COVID, and it just completely took off and took advantage of the situation, right? It completely, I mean, profited with bringing people food home and stuff like that. Right now, my wife, for example, Instacart. I mean, Instacart is genius. I mean, who would have came up with something that, you know, you literally go shopping for somebody else and then you just bring it to their home, right? And my wife right now, she does that, like she does it almost every day. If we run out of milk, Instacart. So little things like that, and it makes me sad because there's some case studies that are really messed up and could have been profitable. For example, I love Soup Plantation, right? And Soup Plantation did not make a pivot. They did not adapt to what COVID was bringing to the table. You know, they didn't believe in the DoorDashes, and they didn't believe in doing all this stuff, or making a delivery system where you go to the parking lot and they deliver the food to you, right? They didn't do any of that stuff, and they just fell apart. And that was a great franchise. Another one is Blockbuster, right? They came in at the very end. They started delivering stuff. I think there's only one Blockbuster left now. But if you notice, I mean, all the signs were there. Redbox started taking over. All these other Netflix started taking over, and they just would not adjust because they believed in themselves that, you know what, people are not going to get rid of that experience of coming to the movie rental place and reading the back of a box or talking to somebody and saying, hey, have you seen this movie? Have you seen this, blah, blah, blah. You know, they thought that was going to still make it out alive, and it didn't. So I actually read a lot of case studies on what not to do, because that's exactly, those are the indicating factors of, you know, Porter's 5 forces of understanding if an external factor is going to come in and you're not paying attention to it. And that's why I brought up the startup, the startup failures. It's because a lot of times you get so much into the weeds that you're not paying attention to the external world of what's happening. And if that happens, you can create the best device out there. But what if somebody already did that and they had a marketing plan and they had a strategy in place, and the market completely gobbled you up, right? So that's a great point you brought up. And yes, I read a lot of case studies. Absolutely.
Apparently, maybe that's on your path to your doctorate. Jody is going to be our presenter next week with Dimitri. He's with Annapolis. And Jody, again, if you want to come on and introduce yourself a bit, then we'll have a better sense of what we can expect for next week. Bryan, please continue.
Yeah, so there was quite a bit of items. Another very sorry, let me go back to Alyssa. Alyssa, I'm very, very passionate about what you talked about. Do you have a case study that really just either baffles you or just is a true success story that resonates with you?
Yeah, you know, there's two. Actually, the Blockbuster one, I really love the Blockbuster one, because I call my company, my project, taking Blockbuster to Netflix. It's that kind of level, but I actually use that in my pitch a lot of times. There's also another case study, and I forgot the name of it. I'll have to ask one of the professors. It's where they utilize the workers to become responsible, the engineers, the workers, to become responsible for the product. And they also got a percentage of equity within the company or shares within the company in exchange for, so they had ownership. They gave people that work for them ownership in it. And they also gave them the responsibility of the liabilities they produced as well. And I love that philosophy, because we're all responsible for something, and it shows. And so, and then there was one about the leadership being vulnerable. There was I think it was Midas Tires. They hired a guy from France to come in, and he was brilliant across the board. And they moved him from Paris to the South, like the Southern South. And had he opened his doors like they do in the South, had they invited them in, the people in, there was always a detachment between him and the Southern style, the Southern culture. So culture can really, really impact a company if it doesn't line up. So demonstrating that you're willing to be vulnerable as a leader and spending time outside of work with the organization can be so valuable.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's crucial. And that's why I talked about culture quite a bit, because there's, especially now in the virtual world, right? And in the virtual world right now, I mean, you can send somebody an invite and they're going to get offended because it's against, they're on the other side of the country and it's against their religion to work on a Saturday or on a Sunday or something of that nature. And you can offend, maybe a text message, you're texting somebody and like, hey, can we do this, that? And they take it more like a demand or an order instead of a request. So I guess, right now, that's a huge factor right now. And I'm actually learning about that in my PhD. It's virtual and global leadership. And it's just understanding the dynamics between everybody, right? So that's a great point you brought up. Thank you.
Very impressed, Brian. Hey, Gunjan, I know you were camera shy today because you're disheveled. Everyone give him some applause and encouragement to come on, because he's made 2 comments now, and we'd like to hear you share what they are, please. Gunjan. And that's not Jody, that's Dimitri. What's going on there? Take yourself off mute.
Did it say Jody on the invite?
It says Jody. You're Jody. That's why I've been like, where's
I have
Jody?
to fix that. I have to fix that. Apologies.
All right.
Joe, I'm going to unmute myself, but I'm not in a condition that you want to see me. I went to sleep at 3 a.m. I woke up and I sat in front of the camera. So
Okay.
I don't want to present.
We'll have to imagine you in your bathrobe then, please. Go ahead. You made some comments.
Maybe that isn't even, let's not go
Okay, fine. Everyone, Gunjan is completely naked. Go on.
Yeah, 2 comments I think I made. One was that if some of you are in Southern California and you're entrepreneurs, you should definitely look at an organization called the Indus Entrepreneur. And in the chat box, I put in their URL, socal.ti.org. My wife used to be president of this organization a few years ago and helped it grow. And now it has become huge. They just held a very large investment summit about a month ago. And I think now they're doing 1 or 2 events a week these days. So it's a great organization for any entrepreneur. They do some Zoom events too, but I think the in-person events are most valuable.
Wow.
The second comment I made was relating to, what is a startup? I know in the medical and pharmaceutical world, we think of a startup that has no revenue and may ultimately sell to a large company right after they get FDA approval and never see $1 in the bank from sales. But the broader definition of a startup certainly includes companies that may be at Series B, Series C, Series D, and they may have 10, 20, even $50 million in revenue. To me, a startup is really a company whose profitability is not yet stable. They're going up and down based on severe changes in the market or innovations from new products they're bringing out. But a startup can be 10 years old and have $5 million in revenue and would still be a startup to many investors and customers. Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to make those 2 points.
When are we going to get to meet Smita?
I will try and see if I can get her on one of these calls at the same time. She works from home too, so she's in the other room on another. She's consulting for the company that makes WebEx, so she can never be on Zoom, But I'll try to get her on one of these days.
I'd appreciate it. Have her pick a Friday in October.
Okay, will do.
So we can talk about something that she can educate us on.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks. And I will turn on the video next time I'm on.
Fair enough. We'll hold you to it.
Yeah.
Brian, we do go. Michelle, you said you guys may find this article. Okay, there it is. Harvard Business Review, culture is not the culprit. What is it about that article that brings it to our attention today?
I have not read it in some time, but I keep it on my desktop for some reason. But I think it was more to do with the personalities of the people in the team and the leader. Yeah. So anyways, it's just an interesting counterpoint to some of the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Brian, we don't stick to a strict end time at 9, but some people do tend to drop off there.
Yeah.
what would you like the main takeaway of today to be? And then if there are more comments, we can certainly continue.
The main takeaway is actually what Michelle just said. It really is. It's culture is one aspect, but I think vision is also as equally important as culture. I mean, it starts. I think Paul said this as well. It starts from the top down. And it's top down approach. I mean, if you don't have a vision, if you don't know where you want to take your company, what kind of people are you going to hire? What kind of culture are you going to have? It's going to be all over the place. So yeah, it's the vision. That's a huge factor. The culture, but the main takeaway is just asking for help, I guess. Asking for help. I mean, this was very helpful for me. I really appreciate you guys. I didn't think this conversation was going to go into the realm that it did, but I appreciate it. It was awesome. I got some awesome feedback from everybody, but the main takeaway would be ask for help, because I don't think enough people do that. I don't think they ask for assistance. Sometimes a 20-minute conversation is just going to be so beneficial, so worthwhile, and people don't do that enough. They like to pound their chest and just think they know everything, think they can handle everything because it's my company and I'm going to do it this way. And I just think that people just need to ask more questions and just, of course, know what to ask, but sometimes you don't know what to ask. Sometimes you just got to bring up the conversation, which is also why I really enjoy doing this.
Well, you gave us a gift today too, and it's why I extend this invitation to new MDG Premium members. We get a chance to meet someone new and what they know, and we all have an expertise in something. You don't have to prepare a deck to do it, and that's how we build off of one another. Now, Elizabeth and Andy are also both at small startups. Now, Elizabeth, take yourself off mute if you would. You have 2 companies that you're starting in tandem, which is ambitious. What among the things that Bryan has said today resonate with you and that you can give us as feedback?
I would say the culture of the people, the team members is what's really critical. The vision, I just spent the day yesterday talking with potential investors and finance people, and it was very exciting, very interesting, and I got feedback about my passion about it. And so the other team members have to be on board, have the same level of excitement, I guess. So.
How many do you have employees yet, or is it?
No, I have two full-time employees and about 7 independent contractors.
Okay,
so a lot of people to manage. I'm missing some key people, but I'm going to reach out to some of the MDG people, which I do frequently.
You're one of my heaviest MDG people users.
Yes, and I'm going to reach back out to somebody new.
If you would entertain us, who want to rattle off some MDG folks that you've worked with and would recommend to others?
Oh my goodness.
You're the stars.
Yeah, Michelle Lott, Dwayne, let's see, Nick Anderson. So yeah, I mean the list, Jeff, I've talked to Jeff, so lots of people on MDG.
Good.
Lots of. So Michelle, I'm coming to Tucson in 2 weeks. I want to see you in 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, sign me up. Text me later and give me your dates, and we'll make something happen.
But yes, I do have 2 companies, and they're unrelated to each other. It makes life very complicated, but also very exciting.
Yeah, Dwayne, I was actually looking for you. You went and raised your hand, and you went different in the queue. I was looking under the D's. Your event, I don't know if somebody pinged you while we were on the call and said, hey, we're talking about you, because you showed up shortly thereafter.
No, I just was late. I had to get an e-check done for my wife's car.
Okay, well, while you were handling automotive needs for the Manson family, the room was abuzz about some event you're doing in Houston in October. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah. Before I plug that, can I just add one comment to this actual topic?
Sure. So you want to say something relevant? Go ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of the startups we have, when we talk to them, and Elizabeth kind of brought it up, is they're talking about their internal team, their internal culture, but you have to have your consultants buy in as well. So for example, when I have our startups go figure out who they're going to work for regulatory, right? As an example, it's as much as you're interviewing Michelle or Rob Packard or any other consultant, from a knowledge standpoint, you need to also figure out their personality fit. Do they fit with you? Because these kind of mistakes for an early stage startup could put a nail in the coffin, right? I mean, you're talking about a lot of capital and sunk into working with them. And if it's not a good fit, then it's really not going to work out. So that was my comment I had to say. From a the event perspective, yeah, this is our third startup symposium. So the first two we did, Akron, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, March and June. This is our Houston, Texas one. So we'll do 3 of these a year. There's actually some other people on the phone that we're looking at partnering with for next year. They're smaller events. So we have a cap at 100 people. I put a post out earlier today that we were 70% full. We're now 80% full. So we had 10 people register in the last like 3 hours. But yeah, it's going good.
What's your
$250 if you're a startup. So the by intention, guys, this is super cheap. It's also smaller by intention as well, right? So you have like the LSIs of the world, the med tech strategists that are 300, 400, 500 people. Our idea was, can we shrink that and still bring value with the kind of people we're inviting to come to this? So the theme for both days are the first day is going to be more product themed. So you'll see Michelle Lott speak. You'll see a few others on panels. And then the second day is going to be very much like people and capital. So there'll be a lot of investors, and we're also giving 16 slots to startup companies to present their projects, whether they're fundraising or not. But anyways, that was a word vomit. So smaller event by intention, cheaper. NightQuest is a sponsor. They'll be there as well.
What are the dates, Dwayne?
October 6th and 7th. So generally we shoot for a Wednesday, Thursday, but Houston's a Thursday, Friday because it's at the Texas Medical Center and they have an event on Wednesday. So we couldn't get the space. Yeah.
Will Lance Black be there?
Lance will not be there. He's no longer with the Texas Medical Center.
That doesn't mean he can't come.
Yeah, well, he's not signed up as of now. So
I'm going to sign up, Dwayne. I'll be there.
Fantastic. Yeah.
No, I would hope you'd extend some kind of MDG premium benefit. If you hit 100, but Elizabeth hasn't signed up yet, you'll let her in.
There's always an MDG benefit. And really, if the $250 is a real hang up, that you could just use, I have discount codes I can send to people. I'm happy to do it, right? The whole goal of this is to get startups in the room. That's
you have a link for that, maybe?
It's in the chat already. It's very, very far up there.
I think it was the first comment in the chat.
I gotta run.
Bye, Michelle.
Enjoyed everybody's conversation. Bye.
Thanks, Michelle.
See some of you soon.
Thank you. Hey, before we close, Dimitri, has he gone? I think he has. I was going to ask him to tell us a bit about next week, but I think he has. Nicholas. He shows up at the last minute, but he's everyone's fan favorite. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Anderson. Have the twins arrived yet?
No,
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Your connection is weird, or you have a serious throat condition?
I've been talking since 1 a.m. I was on an advisory board in Barcelona all night from 1 to 7.
I still think you have technical issues. Otherwise, you are like deep throat now, and you resonate and vibrate.
I might have my VPN, but my voice is also gone.
I see. Okay. Now you're going to rejoin us as a speaker. Let me see what week it is. Nick is the week after, on the 9th. So the next 3 weeks are Dimitri with his startup Annapolis. Nick is going to tell us actually, I'm wondering now, how badly will Medicare changes hurt physicians in 2023? Because it's not as dire as it was, I think, when you chose that title, right?
One of the final rules has come out. There's two big final rules that Medicare puts out, and one of them has come out. The other one's just proposed. But we'll talk about it in 2 weeks and get into some detail.
Fair enough. And then the week after stars me. It's going to be the day after London, and the folks who attend, Luke will be there, and Eddie is not on the call today. Anyone else on today's call? No, you're mostly stateside. We'll talk about what you missed and give you some recaps. And NightQuest is busy sponsoring everybody, it seems. They're sponsoring me too. So if you need a sponsor for something, call Mike Belangi or Michelle Wu. That seems to be the answer. Bryan, this was great. Welcome to the team. Andy, I extend that invitation to you. Should you join us, let's have an Andy week where we hear what you're doing and we have each functional expert on the call and say, have you thought of this and have you thought of that? I find those to be the most rewarding weeks of all. Andy,
I'll take you up on that.
That was helpful, yeah? Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Before people jump off,
Yes.
if anybody can recommend a grant writer, I'd appreciate it.
Kevin, I could send you one right now. The Superior
Okay.
Medical Experts. They're up in Minnesota. Ashley Mooneyham. I did an episode of the podcast with her if you want to listen to it first. Or I could just make an intro.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate it.
What do you need a grant for?
Well, it's kind of dependent
Money.
on if
Probably money.
well, yeah, if our alleged sale does not go through, we're kind of back to fundraising, but there's some money at through BARDA that's kind of applicable to what we're working on as far as biodefense applications.
Okay.
Dwayne, will you send me that contact as well? And then Kevin, I got to Sadale Turbowski.
It doesn't count if you can't pronounce it. Who else do you have?
You know, that's true. I'll send you their contact information as well, because
All
I'm
right,
in
thanks.
I have 3 that I'm submitting by September. So
Also, Jerry Hollister at BBC. They're pretty good. I can put that in the chat.
Okay. Or I'll yeah, that's fine. I was gonna say, otherwise I'll shoot you an email.
Members helping members. I love that. Hey, Gable, why don't you present something in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, but I'm so busy.
I know you
No.
are. The children are invited. They can each present a slide.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'll let's talk. I'll get on the agenda soon.
Okay. Well, unless there's anything for the good of the order. Great week. Bryan, welcome. Andy, future welcome. And I'll see you all this time next week.
That's right. Have a great week.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Nice to meet everyone.
Thanks, Joe.